Welcome to The Pestle, reviewing and breaking down movies to look for insights into the movie-making process. Hosted by my buddy. Wherever he goes, I go too. Now let's dim the lights and start the show.
Welcome everybody to The Pestle. Today's show is brought to you by Wings of Voice. Do you have the right stuff on the stage? Test your mettle on Wings of Voice. Welcome everyone to The Pestle. I am Wes.
And I am Todd.
And we're filmmakers. We like to analyze films from the standpoint of people who, work in the creative field of filmmaking in all kinds of avenues, acting and writing and directing and scoring and music and probably a lot of other stuff too. But all that to say, I don't know. I want to dive right in. I think there's a lot of fun stuff to talk about today. What are we covering, man?
Today we are covering Bring Her Back. So it's in theaters now. If you haven't seen it, please pause this episode, go to the theater, grab some popcorn, watch this, because we're going to spoil a bunch of stuff.
Yep. We'll dive through a bunch of things. I think at a minimum, we'll talk about child violence on screen. I think Todd and I have two different approaches to that, and so that could be an interesting bit of conversation. And of course, we'll talk about some of the story and writing, talk about torturing the audience and the characters, as well as look at some ways to think about competent filmmaking, talk about character work and other such stuff and things and stuff.
And a quick synopsis of the film. A brother and sister uncover a terrifying ritual at the secluded home of their new foster mother. It's directed by Danny and Michael Philipou. Written by Danny Philipou and Bill Hinzman. Cinematography by McLisky. It's featuring Billy Barrat as Andy, Sally Hawkins as Laura, Jonah Wren Phillips as Oliver, and Sora Wong as Piper.
Okay, no clip today. They were all just very, ambient and So... yeah, we had an interesting time getting to the theater to watch this. I saw it like opening date Thursday, right? Films usually nowadays open on Thursday to give you a little bit more runtime in the opening weekend.
The weekend,
yeah, right. That's right. And so I saw
they're on a 4-day week in Hollywood.
That's true. And so the film didn't open at your neck of the woods for like an additional week. And so we had to, and in the interim, I was on the fence. I was like, oh, there were some pretty sketchy moments here around the violence. And so I wasn't sure. And I told you, I was like, I'm still kind of calibrating where your line in the sand is about child violence. And so I wasn't really sure if this like pushes past it or if it's like, it's fine. It could go really either way. And so for me, it was very interesting, and I'll get to that later. But I'm curious, just broadly speaking, are you glad you went and watched this film? And what was your experience with Bring Her Back?
Yeah, I'm glad I went.
Nice.
I always appreciate the heads up when it comes to child violence and stuff, and because I'm pretty sensitive to it. It's just something that, like, I think everybody has their thing where they're like, man, I just didn't need to see that, and maybe you haven't found it, but I guarantee you have your thing. So maybe go see one of the Terrifier movies and you'll find your thing. For me, it's violence against kids. Now, this is a little bit different though, because the kid does the violence himself, which
interesting.
I didn't realize, because you were telling me, I don't know where your line is, so I'm just going to tell you about everything. And I was like, I appreciate that. I don't know what my line is either. I don't know. I don't know when it's like, oh man, they didn't need to do that. Mm-hmm. In this case, I didn't feel like that because, like I said, it wasn't done to, because when you told me that this, kind of what happened with the knife and everything, which we already had spoilers. Yeah. So yeah, whatever. I pictured somebody doing it to him. That's totally different than him doing it to himself. Right. So, and it's still, I still looked away. Yeah. I was like, oh, here it is.
Yeah.
And he like hands him the knife with and then he fucking turns around.
The blade. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I know what's going on right now. So yeah, it was brutal and gross, and they do linger on it and stuff, which honestly I was okay with. Like I said, because he did it to himself. The movie itself, I think that it is not okay. Let me say this in two parts. First, I think it's not as good of a movie in general as
Talk to me.
Talk to me. Not as good.
Agreed.
In general. However, I think it's at the same time as I think it's not as good a movie. I think to me it's more impactful and more meaningful for me. So there's this kind of I guess horror movies have this you could call it a trope now where they just rely, and this movie does that very heavily. They rely on trauma, on loss.
Yeah.
And everything stems from a loss, right? And so I knew that going in. I'm like, okay, I know that this is bring her back. I mean, obviously somebody's probably died and it's probably a child. That was my assumption going in, and that's exactly what you get. So I was a little worried because I was like, okay, I know what's going on. Somebody lost somebody and they're trying to bring somebody back, and how are they doing this? But I thought that the writing was actually really interesting in this movie because yes, that is what happened, but there's a lot of things that could have been different. Where's her husband? We don't need to know where he is. He has nothing to do with this, right? So just don't even have him in there. Don't even talk about him. Like, he's gone. Like, whatever. Maybe he left, or maybe he wasn't around when it happened and he left a long time. Doesn't matter.
Great
don't
point.
Need that character.
Great point. I love that point.
Yeah. And then I knew, right at the beginning, the circle situation when they pull up to the house and you see the white circle, whatever. I knew, okay, like there's a barrier here, but they never say it. I think that that's really cool as well. I think there are some interesting reveals where she's kept her daughter's body. I didn't expect that. And then the fact that it opens and it says, "This is not a cult." Like, that was interesting too, because like that's the first thing that you would think, right? It's like people walking around like doing terrible things to other people. Okay, yeah, this is like a cult ritual thing. No, this is not a cult. This is this is obsessed people trying to bring back people that they've lost, or somebody that they've lost, which is totally different from saying, I believe in this whole thing, that is Satan or whatever. It's not about that. It's just, I want this person back. That was really interesting to me. So like, that's an interesting way to open the movie. You're saying you have an expectation. This is not what that is, And so that made me look at Laura in a totally different light throughout this entire thing, because if I would have thought she's in this part of a cult and she's like, doing these rituals because that's what she believes in, then this movie would have been totally different. It's like more of a religious kind of like vibe, but knowing, no, it's not a cult. She doesn't even want to do it. She's just doing it because she lost her daughter and she will do anything to get her back. That's completely different. So now this movie is different on that level for me as well. And I look at her differently too. She does terrible things. She's an awful person. And when Andy pins her up against the wall and punches in the wall, I was like, yes, good job for you, man. Cause she's terrible. And she does the whole, oh, he knocked me down. Like the whole thing where you're just like, God dang, this is awful. But also I'm sitting there thinking, like, I'm a parent, like, what would I do? I don't know that I would do that, but I can understand from the point of view, not of a religious point of view, but of a just a drive of getting my child back, I would go to the end of the earth, like, and then we had that moment where they're sitting in the chair back to back, and she has that great monologue where she talks about when she put her in the ground and she just stay there for days, because how could she go home and sleep in a bed when her daughter's underground? It was wonderful. Like the acting is fantastic. Billy Barrat, wow, that kid brought it.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, for me, I thought this movie was really, really great in that regard. And do I want to see it again? No, I don't want to see it again. I'm good, but I think that it is. And are there holes in it? And is it not perfect? And is there other movie better? Yeah. Yes to all of those things. But I did feel something more in watching this movie than in watching Talk to Me. Watching Talk to Me was like, it was eye candy the whole time. And the last thing I'll say is that these are for totally different audiences. Talk to Me is a young person's movie. You got young people in it doing crazy, stupid things and making mistakes and paying for it and, partying and doing drugs and all that stuff. Like it is a young person's movie. This is not. This is a 45-year-old parents movie. It is. So like where you're asking, it's good because you start asking yourself questions. What would I do? How far would I go? And yes, it kind of ends a little bit like, oh, she's done all of this terrible stuff. And now she's even killed her brother. And now she has this moment of come to Jesus where she can't kill she's got everything is ready to go. All she has to do is hold her down for another 10 seconds. And she doesn't. Yes, that's like get out of jail free card that did not have to happen. That I was like, come on, she's already killed so many people. She's done terrible things to this other kid. He's been possessed and like whatever. Wow. Just do one more, 10 more seconds. So that kind of ruined it for me, but I understood too, because that's a part of me that was like, stop, was saying stop. And so all that to say, I enjoyed it. I think that this movie is for a different audience. I think that it did a pretty good job of that. Or the things that I think should have been different. Yes, 100%. But it's also really hard to look at. It's hard to watch, Oliver?
Mm-hmm.
Evolve into this
monster.
monster. And I'm watching this and the last thing I'll say is I was watching this and I was thinking, can't wait to talk to Wes about like, what were his parents thinking, about this little kid as an actor, like really looking awful. And I'm sure he saw himself, like that's scary to see yourself like that, and his belly being distended at the end there and like the stuff he had to put in his eyes. And I mean, that had to be practical. It looked so good. It had to be. Maybe it's not, I don't know, but I was thinking like, how do you get a child to not only, because he was amazing at doing nothing. That kid was amazing at doing nothing, just like standing there. And then also his parents, like, how are you okay with your kid doing this? And like, do you check in on him? Is there, a therapist on set and stuff? Is it like traumatizing? I don't know. But it was that visceral what I was thinking, what about the kid? Like the actor. So anyway, yeah. What did you think?
I have a lot of those thoughts too, in terms of like, it's easy to sit and watch a movie, especially growing up, like watching Children of the Corn, which I don't think I ever actually watched, but in my mind, it's full of kids hurting each other and killing each other. And you kind of enjoy it and be like, oh, that's wild. And Battle Royale, right, is just full of child on child violence. And it's at some point in the last, decade, it's become more and more obvious. Like, yeah, what about actual behind the scenes filming this stuff, like, how does the filmmaker feel? How do the parents feel? And I have a hard time like writing that kind of stuff. My last script has a lot of child violence in it, and it's very pointed. And yet I still wrestled with like, how far do I push this scene? Do I push this envelope? Because I'm in my perfect world, I'm going to be on set directing these kids and talking to the parents and talking to a crew. Crews have gotten more sensitive over the last, 10, 20 years. It used to be, you just show up and it was all fun and games. And at some point, like, we've all become more sensitive to, not that crews would just turn a blind eye to everything. I'm not suggesting that. But there was just a lot more good faith, I think, in the system. And by the time you got on set, there was a lot of trust in the producers, and there's just so many more productions, and there's so much more press that everyone's a lot more aware. And having grown up in this environment now, people who are crewing up and walking on the sets are a lot more sensitive. Like, is this okay? Is this portrayal okay of, Native Americans? Is this portrayal okay of Black people and minorities? Like, everyone is much more conscious of what they're partaking in, instead of just showing up and saying and assuming good faith. Like, they're more willing to ask hard questions. And so even as I'm writing stuff, I'm thinking, like, do I feel comfortable being on set and creating this? Even if I were to sell the script and let someone else take it, am I okay with my name being attached with this? Like, I'm thinking those thoughts. And so I'm sure all those kinds of questions are being asked, of them. And I'm really glad that they're okay with taking these swings. Like, I walked into this film super excited because I watched, Talk to Me and loved it. And I was like, I'm so curious where these guys are going next. And then walking into this and seeing, completely agree, what a strong opening. Like, this to me is like competent filmmaking, where the opening dives straight into a ritual, right? That is filmed in a really interesting way. And it's like this secondhand perspective of it, because it's all like a degraded VHS recording of the thing. Or is it, or are we in, it is, right? The opening is VHS footage. Is that right?
It's not, but
it's not. We reference it later.
We reference it, and then we zoom in on her filming on the actual eyepiece.
Gotcha. Sorry, it's been almost 2 weeks since I saw this, so my
right.
memory will be fuzzy. So, okay, but that opening sequence is so strong. It creates a lot of questions, and it's giving a sense of the story landscape, right? This is a ritualistic horror story. And so we have a broad parameter because, to your point, combined with the title, Bring Her Back, we know this is some kind of summoning ghost story thing. Like, we still don't know exactly, but it's piqued our interest, and it's created all these questions that we know, especially whenever early on she says that line of, some people believe the spirit stays in the body for months, right? Which is cueing us to her beliefs, and also the story logic about the spirit being a separable entity from the body, right? If it stays, it implies it can leave. And so it's a great use of like very subtle language. And so right from the opening, you just feel like you're in really good hands, right? The blocking, the cinematography for every single scene that they make in this film is like, they understand cinema language expertly. And so from the very first frame, you feel that. You get a really strong sense that I can trust that we're in the hands of professional storytellers who know where they're taking me. And I got that sense right off the bat. But for me, as the story unfolded, I was really, really excited, maybe all the way up until the knife scene, where I was just like, okay, why is this happening? And it's such a funny thing, because I would be more than happy to like write off certain elements of, like, I don't need answers to that if the end game is compelling enough where I walk away feeling like, man, that was a really good story. And my problem with this movie is it didn't end up being a really good story. it had all the ingredients for an incredible story, because I love everything you said about, like, this is it's trauma based. And so you have very strong perspectives from all three characters, right? This is really a story about three characters. The brother, sisters, and Laura, the foster mother, which it bears repeating, Sally Hawkins. Oh my God. Oh my God.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. She is the movie.
She is the movie. She's incredible. But everyone is. Absolute. Billy Barrat and Sora Wong are just magnificent. Like, they are just so good. And I think this is Sora Wong's, like, debut.
Yeah, I don't know who she is.
What?
I hadn't seen her before, but my God, she's fantastic.
Fantastic. It's so... to me, it's really frustrating, because you get to the end of the story and everything just doesn't feel like it adds up. Like, the dad dying in the shower in the opening is really compelling visually, and it's giving you a really strong picture, especially as it kind of reinforces the brother-sister dynamic. And then Andy can't shower, that's really fun. That's interesting, and it's pointed. But what isn't, to me, as pointed, and maybe you have some more insight on this, is like his dad's ghost. Like, I don't really understand that, right? Is his dad helping him or hurting him, or is it just another element to demonstrate that ghosts are real and haunt us for some reason? And so I didn't understand that whole story thread. And then you get to the end, and this really, for me, was like starting to check me out. Was you get to the very final, you get to the climax, and Andy is calling Piper. She doesn't pick up. He leaves a voice message, just spilling his guts, revealing everything. And it's so expository that I was just like, this is so weird. Like, it's an odd character choice to have him laying out all the threat, even though he knows she's in the house with this lady who has access to his phone, to her phone. And then it just feels a little too convenient to the story beats overall. Right. Because the real feather in the cap is you get to the end of the film and she gets to listen as he gives her this tearful goodbye. And that is becoming very tropey, not just in this genre, but in pretty much all movie genres, where someone leaves a message and you get to listen to the message during the denouement, where you're watching how everything ends and the sun rises or sets, or
after they died.
After they've died. And it's just like, okay. Mm-hmm. It just feels a little, I don't know, it's getting cliche at this point. And
why did a cop not go with them?
That is what really wrecked me. He's making some pretty outrageous allegations. And if she's going to go out there, the fact that she wouldn't bring a cop, or at least bring a cop, like, you have to lampshade that moment. And lampshading is just, the audience has an issue. You need a character to call that issue out and then address it. And even if the way it's addressed isn't satisfactory, you've effectively helped kind of hit the snooze button for the audience. And that's what they call a lampshade. You're kind of dimming down this problematic light that's blinding you, and it's preventing you from taking the story seriously. It's so hot. You need to put a lampshade on it to dim it down a notch. And they don't. They don't give us anything. Instead, she just hops in the car, and he doesn't have an issue with it. And he's like, oh, good. My hero is here who has no way to defend herself. Like, that's
and the other reason you think that is because when he's turning her in to her boss, there is a cop in the room
right there,
like, hearing this. Hey, you see this kid who's been missing for 10 days? I know where he is. He's over here at this lady's house that you put me with. Hey, Mr. Officer, you want to come check it out? Because he's missing. There's a flyer, right? Yeah. Anyway, sorry. Keep going.
And so I think story-wise, the choices there were missed, because take the cop with you and then have her kill the cop in cold blood which forces her to kill the other woman. Now she's making really strong choices about what she wants. And to your point, at that point, I think she also has to go through with drowning Piper.
Yeah.
Because once you're in for a penny, you're in for a pound. And I don't understand the logic of letting Piper go after everything she's done at this point, especially if she's already going to make the decision to kill the other social worker. Like, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you just kill Piper and go the last mile? That doesn't really
Andy killed Andy too.
Which that one is probably bothered me more even than the cop aspect, which is his death felt really flat and he died rather easily given their physical disparity, because it didn't seem like the van really caught him that well. It felt like at best he got a little clipped, and I just don't think I bought into him being unable to defend himself in that moment. She just kind of shoves his head in a puddle and calls it a day, and it's just like, wait, what? So you set everything up so masterfully, and then at the final stretch, things just kind of happen, which felt very much like a betrayal of a competent filmmaker. Like, these guys had a strong grasp of drama and stakes and how to push the envelope, and then at the last 5 minutes, they just let off the gas and they just said, you know what? We've gone too far now. No, you haven't. You have a kid eating a table. We can push it.
You know what I kept thinking before you continue is I kept thinking, oh, I know exactly what she's going to do. Okay, she's going to let Piper go, and then she's going to get possessed by her daughter so her daughter could live. She can do anything. I would do anything. Sacrifice yourself. Let this, whatever, because it had already chewed the daughter's body, and then it needed to go into a new host that's living. Why couldn't that be her? Yep. I thought that would be a great ending. That's what's going to happen. That's going to happen. But no, she's the demon walks away and then walks out of the circle. Why? Because it's deciding to leave, and then she brings the daughter into the pool, and is she dead, or does she drown herself, or is she just asleep or acting asleep, or I'm not sure. I don't really understand that at all either, but I thought that was what was going to happen.
Yes, because of all of that, and you get to the end, and Oliver gets to live, so that's nice for whatever reason. Although he is disfigured, geez Louise. But at that point, I no longer know what story I just watched is. And that gets into my problem of all the problems in the film, which I would have forgiven if you'd given me a stronger ending. And that's kind of the gift and curse, I guess, maybe of just me as a viewer, of I'll forgive a lot if you give me a something really strong, landing.
It's not just you. Yeah.
And if you don't, I'm going to punish you for all those things.
Yeah, exactly.
And so, here's the stuff that doesn't work for me, right? Which comes back to torturing the audience and torturing your characters. I don't understand so much that happens in this movie. The whole element of making Andy kiss the corpse is a really interesting scene, which maybe the only rule in horror is to make scenes compelling and cringy. But it, to me, is ultimately a pointless scene. Why? That didn't serve her purpose. Is this just an attempt for her to mess with his head? It didn't really feel that way. It felt like she's just kind of deranged, but it didn't really make sense in light of finding out she's also was a social worker for 20 years. All these pieces don't make sense. They don't paint a picture. They just feel like a bunch of random puzzle pieces from different puzzle boards jammed together. And that isn't very satisfying in hindsight. And then all the elements of the body horror, right? To me, this is very cheap thrills. I don't necessarily mind body horror if I get to the end of the film and I'm like, oh, that's why. Or, oh man, I don't mind. That was a really crazy moment and it kept me engaged. And so like him eating the knife and the table and his own arm and pulling her hair out and doing all that thing, like, I don't understand it, and dwelling on all of it, right? Like they really sit on these moments, you know, and enhance the horror through like close-ups and sound effects, and they're just redlining the audio sound effects, which just really bothers me. Like to me, that's very cheap. That's a very cheap way of getting people to feel emotions. You're shoving, you effectively have a captive audience. You know, I bought a ticket. I'm probably not going to walk out. And so you just kind of get to do whatever you want. And it feels very cheap to just say, how can I make them squirm in their seat through visual audio instead of making me squirm in my seat through drama, through more psychological hidden elements, right? The things in people's hearts and in their minds are much more terrifying. Because now I'm empathetically connecting instead of just shoving a visual in my face and then cranking the audio to 11. That's super cheap. And I think the Philippous are just better than that. Like there's such better storytellers than that. And so that's really offensive to me as an audience member and just as a filmmaker. Like this gets into some of my bugaboos about filmmaking in general. Like whenever after the year of whatever, it's arbitrary, but 2010, if you're still driving audience engagement, antagonizing the audience through door knocking that goes on for 30 seconds and gets louder and it won't stop until the character answers the door, or a phone ringing and it just rings and rings and it's just trying to agitate you, like that's really cheap. That's a bullshit tactic that belongs in the 90s. Like it's so cheap. Grow up and have a better story to tell. And so those elements I really, really hate. And this is just the new version of that. It's body horror and we're going to shove it in your face and it's not going to mean anything. We're just going to do it because it's a horror film. Like grow up. And so that to me is not really nice. And they have so many other like really competent, and this makes it such a weird, frustrating experience because they're competent filmmakers, unbelievably. Like the character work in here is so good. The brother-sister dynamic is fantastic. It's really quick and easy to understand the relationship, what they want, right? Their goals. She wants to belong and to feel normal, and he wants to protect her because she can't see what he sees. And so these are just really fantastic stakes that really drives the story of him wanting to protect her is the backbone, the spine of it. And I buy into it. That's what's so good is I'm buying into it. And the acting and the casting is just so strong. Everyone, Sally, Laura, Andy, Piper, well-crafted characters who are executed. But like everything is so well crafted on that. The dialogue is just naturalistic. Like everything everyone says feels like each character is its own character, right? It never feels like there's a writer sitting behind a typewriter and it's just like, and then they say this and it's all convenient. Like everything feels really lived in and like these characters are inhabiting this world. And like the makeup is incredible. It's really intentional writing that showcases the easy makeup, right? That's going to be impactful to the viewer. Like it's all working really well in harmony. It's not just, oh, we're going to have really cool makeup for a gun wound or whatever. It's like, no, the makeup is needed for very story reasons. And that is something that I'm just kind of waiting on the story to circle back to, like making sense of it. And instead it's just like, well, she's hungry because it's a horror film and for whatever reason I need to starve her. Oliver, her Kathy / Kathy, you know, or whatever. And
yeah.
right. And then, but that doesn't make sense about why would she chew through a knife or chew through a table? Like, is she
eats anything?
Yeah, like it's so I don't know. It was such a mixed feeling of these guys are such great storytellers, and yet they made some really strange decisions on the final thing that could have bought you a lot of grace, at least with me, and instead just did not stick to landing. And there's, because to your point about like this is about parents and what would you do if you lost a child? Like, how far would that derange you, and what would you be willing, if you thought there was a way to bring them back, would you do it? And for her to make all the decisions that she did and yet not go that final distance, it creates a question about, well, what was it for? Like, why did we go through this experience? Why do that if she didn't really learn anything from it? Like, she just kind of stops because she chooses to stop. Whereas if she had gone through with it and then regretted it because of Oliver's dead and now Piper's gone spiritually, and yet this version of my daughter still isn't the version of my daughter that I thought I was going to have. I thought if I got something much closer to Kathy, which is embedded in Piper's visual impairment and not being around the same height, around the same age, like all these, and yet she still isn't my Kathy. Like, why? You know, and then you can find your way out through that, or maybe just leave us in that moment of she's standing there, you know, still out of her gourd and having this realization, like as the cops are in the distance closing in, like, crap, what was it all for?
What have I done?
Yeah, what have I done? And you never really get that sense. Instead, it's kind of an easy button of, yeah, we're not going to pay the cost of admission for this story. Like, I don't know. I don't know, man.
Was she dead at the end? Or was she
Piper?
alive? The mom.
Oh, Laura.
Yeah, Laura.
I don't remember. How did they leave her? I don't remember exactly.
It was just an aerial shot down of her with her dead daughter in the pool. And her eyes were closed and she was just cuddling with her.
Right.
But she's not moving.
Yeah.
Her eyes are closed, but her face is out of the water. So
ostensibly survived.
I guess. Yeah. But like, yeah, I totally did not get that. I just had no idea. And it wasn't like a, you know, it is the top going to fall kind of moment. Like, oh, it's a cliffhanger. What do you think? What do you think? It's almost annoying. It's like, no, I kind of need to know what this is. Like, everything was supposed to lead to something. It's not leading to that thing. So what did it lead to? Oh, you don't have any answer. Essentially, you know, like we have two people here talking about this and neither of us know. So
that's yeah. I don't know, to circle back on like child violence. I don't care. Like my feeling is, if you want to butcher a kid, that's fine. I genuinely do not care. The only thing I do care about is your tactics in terms of, is this torture porn? Like Terrifier, I haven't watched any of them, but everything I gather is that it's just torture porn. And it's just there to make you squirm, which is fine. Like, I'm happy people are happy to make it and that people are happy to consume it. Cool. That's not my thing. I'm here for the story. And if, you know, putting a kid through whatever is going to help you tell your story, I'm all for it, because that to me is less about just trying to weasel into my brain and more about like not getting the reaction. It's not reaction based. It's more like, I want you to feel something for this kid, because this kid is whatever, adding up to a story about a parent who's trying to come to grips with loss. And that's such a great look. We haven't seen the last of people struggling with loss. That's such an easy method to tell an engaging story. And if killing a dozen kids is going to help you tell that story, like, thumbs up for me. Like, let's do it. But I just want it to mean something greater than, and I don't want to have my face shoved into it. Like, I want you to do it in a way that I can't look away from, because the image was never on the screen in the first place. The image was always in my head. And whenever you can get me to see the thing with my eyes closed, then you've won. Now you're telling a story worth telling. I think that's a general, directional quality that helps tell a compelling story. Whereas if you feel like the only way to get me to squirm is to show it to me, then you've already lost. Like, that, I don't care. My emotions aren't engaged. All you've done is aggravate me as a viewer, and you're encouraging me to judge you as a storyteller. It's like, oh, I get it. You didn't have anything better to say, and so you showed me like death by a thousand cuts. Got it. I no longer trust you as a storyteller, and now I'm judging you from here on out until you can win me back over. Yeah. And so
I'm not like always against it, but the thing is that not only does it have to be important to the story, but the story has to be worth it too. The story itself. So like, meaning, it can be pivotal for a shitty story and it's still a shitty thing to do. But if it's a great story and it's necessary, then, maybe. But I just question, like, a lot of times, both of those things. First off, is it necessary? Second, even if it is necessary, is the story relevant and good enough and interesting enough to be important enough to put people through that? Because it's like I don't know. It's like dismembering a puppy on screen. Okay, that might be necessary for the story. What kind of story? What is the quality of story where that is necessary? That's a question.
That is. And at the end of the day, for me, this just, to your point, like, I'm not watching it again. I'm glad I watched it, I guess, just for supporting original storytelling, if nothing else. But never again. Not even because, the violence was too much, but all of it, because the violence didn't justify itself in a bigger experience. Whereas there's plenty of violent films that I'm like, I'm not excited to watch that moment again, but I would be interested to watch whatever, Hereditary, like, because I think there's some really interesting things going on in that story, and it all adds up to something. Yeah. And same thing, Talk to Me. Like, I'll watch that again. It goes somewhere really interesting, and it has some compelling moments, even though it's got some really violent images in there. I'm okay with that. It's part of the price of admission. And if you're going to do a horror movie, yeah, I'd expect something to be bloody at some point and tough to watch. But that's, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. So Talk to Me, you prefer, obviously, over this one.
Massively. Like, to me, I think Talk to Me for me is like a 3.5 out of 5 stars. Like, it's good. It's not like amazing, but it's clever. It's visually compelling. The characters are really fun and interesting, and it takes you somewhere interesting. And here I'm probably like 1.5 to 2 stars out of 5. It's just like,
wow, that's incredibly low for all of the good things that you did say about it.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, the acting and the cinematography and What did you think about the music?
You know what? I don't remember the music. That's so funny. Yeah, you loved it, and what do you remember? I just can't summon any of those cues or elements.
Well, I can't remember any of the cues either, but like I love the feelings that I had that it elicited from so not much happens for most of the movie, like it just is building. So it kind of leans on the necessity of the music to give you a feeling, because you feel uneasy Sure. But that's kind of hard to feel uneasy for 45 minutes. It's just like, okay, I feel uneasy. Give me something. So they had these moments of, and I don't mean, the blaring of the, that, she was blaring music. I don't mean that. I mean like the actual cues. Like there were cues where, it needed to feel a little bit more lighthearted. And so there was some lighthearted moments, but if you were to take the music away, you would still feel uneasy. So that the music is like really kind of guiding how you're supposed to feel for the first, I don't know, maybe even hour of the movie, honestly. And so, yeah, I can't remember any of the specific cues, but I do remember, and they were very light. There were no motifs or anything like that I noticed. It was all like, very, a light sound here, a light sound there, like the use of some kind of like weird ambient sound on top of like a bed of something that makes you kind of feel okay. But then there's like this little rub that happens. And so
That's cool.
You instantly feel different because it's like, oh, that's a
tension. It's a little tension moment.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like like a sixth or something, or like a second interval or something. You're like, oh, okay, that's weird. And then you just instantly feel weird. And it's just for a little bit. And then it goes back to feeling okay.
Okay. Well, I take it back. I might rewatch it then just to study the music.
For that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's something that I noticed that because like I really like that, but I don't think that everybody would notice that. I think and that's part of why I liked it. At least the first half, or maybe even first 3/4. No, not that much. Over the first half of the movie, I thought the music was really good, and it like told the story because nothing really else happens. But then I lose it, probably like the last third of the movie. I lose it. I think because I'm just waiting for something else to happen, and some like craziness to happen, but it doesn't really turn into anything. So I was kind of like, I lose it, about that point. But I thought it was pretty solid. Maybe the first 2/3.
Yeah, they do have a strong grasp of like music, and even Talk to Me, that use of was it Levian Rose? They took that Edith Piaf song and just remixed it into an incredible song. And so I'm still excited about what these guys do next, because they do have such a strong grasp of visual language and pacing, and how to pull you into a scene and pull you into characters, and how to use music and sound effects to really great effect. So I'm excited to see what else they got in the tank. This dimmed me down a tiny bit, but not every film can be a film for me, and I am okay with that. Like, I can still support them even if I walked out of this like cursing.
Well, I think it's also saying a lot that it was like really hard for me to get to it. Like, not every theater has it. It came out a week later here, which is fine, but also it didn't come out at like every theater. The one by my house didn't have it. The one next closest to my house didn't have it. I had to drive 45 minutes to get to a theater that played it. So I don't. Maybe that's saying something about what the studios thought of it too. That they're doing more of a limited release than maybe Talk to Me had. I don't know, but I agree with you. I'm very interested to see what they do next, and they have all the bones. It's just you got to deliver that end. You gotta it, and then, dude, ask the questions during the scenes of like, what would I do? I would make sure a cop was there. I don't want this old fat lady is not going to protect me from her. Like, I need somebody with a gun to come also, things like that. Like, just ask yourself those questions, guys. But I mean, I don't know. Other than that, I did think that there were some really strong moments. And I agree with you. The acting is great. Cinematography is great. You feel, stressed out a lot of time. So yeah.
So it goes. Yeah. I think if I were to like rewrite this or sit in the story, what I would want is the end of this film really should have been the end of the second act. And instead, right, she makes the decision to go through with it. And then the final act is what happens after she summons her daughter back, and how much crazier things get from there. Because maybe she completes the seance before the cop and the social worker and Andy arrive. And now maybe what we're left with is Piper possessed by Kathy. Well, now what happens? And now you can push the envelope further and further, because maybe she has plausible deniability and Oliver's gone. She's buried him somewhere. And so he's got nothing. And all now he can say is, that's not Piper. And everyone's going to look at him like, what are you talking about? That's clearly, she's walking and talking. Like, who else would it be? And so now he has to piece together everything that's happened. And now you really have a crazy climax that you can lean into about all the implications of everything that's happened up until this point.
Yeah. That's a good idea.
Yeah. That would be really interesting.
That.
Yeah. All right. What does that look like?
Yeah. But maybe he tries to go and kill Laura, and then he like goes to jail or something like that, because he's already had a history of violence. Like they've established that because he hit her when he was 8 or something. He hit Piper when he was 8.
Yeah.
So.
Or does he like get Piper another body? How does he get Piper back? Is that another element? Right? Like
bring her back too?
Yeah.
Also, bring her back also.
Will he do whatever it takes to get Piper back, And so you could do a lot of interesting things in that final act. And
we should start a podcast where we rewrite movies that we think end wrong.
Joe House had that idea a while back, actually. He was like, man, what if we did that? And I was like, whoa, that is pretty wild. I don't know.
It's a great idea.
Yeah. Let's try it. Nice. Okay. Well, that's all I got. Final thoughts, man.
It was good. I'm glad I saw it. I don't need to see it again, but I am excited about what the Philippous do next.
Yeah.
And if they can like get out of this box of horror. I know that's their thing. I get that, but like you can do like this had the makings of less physical horror and more emotional horror.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that they can write, they can direct, and they've got the visual aspect down. I would like to see them push the boundary of like what they think horror is to human beings, right? It's not just a kid chewing on a knife. It's all the other things. So I'm curious what they do next.
Yeah. Agreed. Nice. So what are you going to recommend this week?
Yeah, this week I'm going to recommend another kind of like possession movie that I can't believe we haven't covered, honestly. The Conjuring.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. From, I guess, I don't know. I don't remember when it is, 2010, 2013, something like that. 2010s. Yeah, in there, 2013. So, it really cool, like messed up film. That's not a true story, but it's like based on a real life couple. So it's interesting. Directed by James Wan. So yeah.
Nice. The Conjuring. I think that's the one I saw in a screening with. Oh, I'm forgetting her name. Lily. Forgetting her name. Yeah, nicely done. I'm gonna recommend new movie out. It's called Life of Chuck. Now, I would say it's solid and it's a crowd pleaser. So it's to me a little bit in the vein of Secret Life of Walter Smitty, where it's got these fantastical elements and it's not being shy about making its points. And so I like it. Just it's not something I'm like crazy about, but it was a really fun movie theater experience, and I enjoyed. I guess getting to support something that felt risky. This felt like a pretty risky film. It's not, the normal blockbuster big film. And I generally appreciate Mike Flanagan. This is a Mike Flanagan film based on a Stephen King short story. And so he's an interesting director. He's someone that I feel like really good ideas. And whenever I was talking earlier about you can feel a writer at a typewriter, he's very much that kind of writer. You can feel every character kind of being written from a writerly perspective. And so in that way, I think this was better than that. But Haunting, Hill House, and Bly Manor, you can usually feel him writing behind the scenes for some of these characters, especially the kids. And so it's nice to see him working with actors who are just crazy talented and you can't write bad dialogue for. They're just going to make whatever you write amazing and natural. And he benefits from that heavily. And whenever you have, Fassbender and Ejiofor and, some of these other incredible actors, Karen Gillan. Gillian?
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 Yeah, I think so.
And so watching them take his work and elevate it is just really cool. And yeah, I don't know. It's kind of a sweet movie and something, a good reason to go to the theater, I think. So yeah, Life of Chuck, and stay tuned. So the next few weeks are going to be interesting. Next week we have a gap week, so we won't have anything technically on the board. But after that, we got a nice lineup coming at you. We got 28 Years Later, we have F1, and we have Three Amigos. So stay tuned.
One of these things don't belong.
Stay tuned for all of that. And if you're enjoying the show, don't forget, subscribe, drop us a note. And if there's something you want us to cover, let us know. And if you want to comment on this episode, you can do that at thepestlepodcast.com/bringherback.
Sometimes the quotes really, really affect me. And this quote is the shortest one maybe that we've ever had, and yet the most impactful. And it's not something, sometimes somebody says something that you've heard 100 times, or maybe you think you've heard 100 times, but when they say it, you're just like, wow.
Yeah.
And that's what this quote is. This quote is from Euripides. Come back, even as a shadow, even as a dream. I get emotional even just saying it out loud. That is wonderful. My family, we have a word. It's a secret word that nobody knows, and we know not to tell anybody. And it's for that reason. We can talk to each other maybe, I don't even want to talk about it that much, but there's this drive, this I guess mission to be able to reconnect, when someone leaves. And I mean, this is just so beautiful. I mean, because we look for those things in these things, in the shadows, in our dreams. We look for meaning. We look for connection. Maybe that is lost. Just wow, just so beautiful. Great quote, man.
Dude, it's so funny you mentioned that. I was thinking about that last week. I was in North Carolina running around, and I was like, oh yeah, Todd has a code word with his family. That's really cool. And it just kind of flitted across my brain. And we haven't talked about that in years. And so it's pretty funny.
You just thought of that? That's crazy.
Yeah. It is. Euripides. So this is from a play. I think it's Heracles. And God, grief is such a powerful element. And I just thought that was an incredibly beautiful sentiment. Whenever you've lost something, and it may not even be a person, it just may have been a moment, and you're just wanting it back. And yeah, I don't know. Well said, man. That's all I got.
Yeah. I wish time was a circle, but it's not. It's a line. At least that's where our brains are, right? That it's a line, at least right now.
What I think about is, and this drives a lot of my life, actually. I don't think we've ever talked about this, is the idea of the big crunch, right? So we have the Big Bang, what we call it the beginnings of the universe that as we know it. And the idea is, with the Big Crunch, if you're not aware, like the universe keeps expanding until sometime billions of years from now, it can't expand any further and it collapses in on itself, and then there's another Big Bang and it's cyclical. And so in that sense, if that's the way it all works, which obviously we don't know, time is a circle. And I try to imagine that I will have to relive my life again. And I try to make it worth reliving. And that's why it's really hard for me to settle, whether it's settle for love or settle for a career that I don't want, because I'm imagining I'm going to put myself through this again. And there are so many moments I don't want to put myself through again, but all I can control is right now and what I do tomorrow. So I try to control that. Like go to the gym so that I'll feel healthy, 5-10 years from now. And I try to do the things that I love and be around the people that I love, because I might have to do this again. I might have to repeat this, and I want to honor my future cyclical self with something worth reliving. Yeah.
That's inspiring. That's amazing. We haven't talked about that before.
Yeah.
We've talked about the Big Crunch and stuff, but not like your motivations around it.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man.
Thanks,
wow.
man.
Thank you for sharing. This has been actually like a great episode.
Yeah,
really,
surprisingly.
I didn't know what we were going to get coming into this, but it's interesting because we're not crazy about the film, but there were some really interesting, like still wonderful things that we both agree with, and this great quote, and get into this conversation. So anyway, hopefully you guys enjoyed this and we haven't lost you. Make sure to share us with your friends. It helps a lot. Subscribe, review us wherever you get your podcasts. It really matters. And if there's a film you'd like to see us talk about, pick apart, analyze, please share it. Who knows, maybe one day we'll cover it. Until next time, I'm Todd.
I'm Wes.
Go watch some movies.